In this episode of Building RYLOTH, we'll be focusing on the main pathway that leads to the Capitol, as well as focusing on the Capitol itself and the main tower that houses the control room and the entranceway into the Capitol, where we'll be employing some tricky techniques to get that rounded curve. But let's get straight into this episode. So I began by finishing up what we started in the previous episode by blocking out the left side of this terrain with the battlefield, figuring out exactly where it's going to be leveled out. Just figuring out exactly where we want the levels to be so we can build out the terrain later. But I'm just continuing what I did in the previous episode. If you want to see more detail into what I'm exactly doing, you can go watch the previous episode, episode 4, in the playlist, which will be at the end of the episode. The only main challenge I've been having with this little area has just been with pillars just falling over. Ideally, I would have a lot more support pillars, but with just filler brick, I am trying to conserve as much as possible. I then started making my way through the main kind of dirt path that leads to the Capitol. I'm again using that same gradient with the dark tan, the medium nougat, and the dark orange, which I think kind of actually turned out really nice for this little area of the dirt path. I do think I'll probably go back in, detail it a little bit more in some areas once you get some more parts in, but I'm only going up until so far because I need to figure out exactly where the doors are going to swing open and what level those are going to be on, so I can kind of determine where I need to build up the terrain. So you probably saw how I was kind of threading the lights through a little bit, trying to figure out exactly where all the wires would go. I still need to figure out exactly where I'm going to put the battery pack and exactly how that's going to kind of be covered up. But I started messing around with kind of like some more fig poses. I tried to recreate the scene in the episode where Mason would do like grabs a droid and they just smashed it to the ground. So I wanted to kind of capture that, so he's holding it just by the neck right there. So I ended up getting in 3 of the new battle packs. So these are good obviously because of the droids, especially those super battle droids, but also the clone troopers. These regular phase 2 clone troopers, the bodies are identical to the phase 1 clone troopers, which is what I'm going to be using in the mock, and I have some leftover phase 1 helmets, so I'll just pop those on to these bodies and I'll get some extra phase 1 clones for the mock. So I wanted to go ahead and start on the main tower. So you can see here how I have this kind of main Technic structure, this kind of one pillar. So basically separate panels will be able to be attached to this at different parts of the Technic structure, but I have multiple of these pillars. I'm just attaching them using some Technic axles and then hinge plates to kind of separate each of them at an angle. And here's one of the panels that I was talking about, very similar to the technique I used with Umbara, except for slightly different. Like in this area where it's just 90 degrees upwards, I don't necessarily have to do any crazy techniques. But when I get into the middle section here, you can see how I'm using some of these plates and I'm putting them underneath these panels on the top side, which kind of gives a slight height difference, but that allows me to kind of get a bit more of a seamless transition between these 2 panels. You can kind of see how I'm making use of the similar dome technique just for this different kind of shaped building. It still has a lot of rounded portions of it, so it works really well for this kind of main tower. But I do want to work on kind of the main control room, which has kind of a rounded window in the front that's going to be around here, and then below this is going to be the door, which I haven't built yet. But I want to kind of figure out exactly how I'm going to get the rounded shape. I don't think that part should be too difficult, but what I do think will be difficult will be kind of reworking this internal structure area to be able to fit the room in here and get all the figures in and possibly even including lights. So I've been working on a bit of a prototype for the flooring for this kind of main control room area. You can kind of see how I'm using kind of a similar technique for the panels. Basically the exact same thing, just flat on the ground. There's some dark blue markings which are accurate to the actual kind of room. These Technic bricks, I've left openings here, which is where the window is going to be. I don't think I'm going to be doing a ceiling because you won't be able to see it. I'm really not going to do much on the interior in terms of detail that you won't see from the outside. I just don't think it'll be worth it. But obviously am hoping to light it up on the inside. I went ahead and designed the kind of cutout for the window in the individual panels. It wasn't too difficult. There's not much of a difference in the kind of angle, so it's quite easy to just kind of get it to look seamless, but there are a few adjustments that I still will need to be able to make. So now you can kind of get a bit of a better idea of what it's going to look like with the final product. I'm making use of some arches on the sides to get that rounded edge, and then this little hose piece to kind of get some of this wire detail that you see. Obviously these panels themselves are still not textured, so I still need to go back in and texture those out. And you can kind of see how, yeah, you will not really be able to see any of the inside through this window. I have a little battle droid right there. If you can see him, you can kind of see what a figure will look like inside the building. But yeah, you won't really be able to see much, so I want to have like some control panels there and then just finish off the walls and stuff. And that'll be about it in this room. I'm going ahead and design some of the control panels. That's going to be in the inside of the control room. So this first design is for the main switch that turns on and off the bridge. So you just have the lever right there. This next console is more of a box console, but I'm making use of some brackets to get detail on all the sides, and I'm also getting some greebling details in there. But one of the key defining factors of some of these control panels is that they have this neon green color, which I kind of wanted to try to capture wherever I could. In this final design, it's a little messy, it's a little janky, but that's because you aren't going to see it. You're only going to be seeing this room from the outside, so you won't see all the messy portions of this. I'm making use of some hinges to get those controls at an angle, and then I'm making use of these lever pieces and just shoving them inside of that grill tile, which is a really fun technique to kind of get some weird control panel designs. I really love that technique. I'm going ahead and attaching them in the right spot. The lever goes in the middle, and those kind of box consoles are attached by this new D-snot piece, which really love that piece, need more of it. And then I'm just making use of the backside of that headlight brick. Now with the interior consoles all done, I wanted to focus on the back wall, the side wall, and pretty much everything besides the ceiling. The ceiling not going to be included just because there's no point, you're not going to see it. So with the back walls, it's pretty much the exact same technique that the outer panels in that kind of row have. I'm just using panels to make sure that angle is as close to seamless as possible. And on one side, I'm making use of just plates on their side with tiles on it. You're not really going to be able to see it. I had a bunch of those 2x2 tiles, so I made good use of them just to kind of get that wall finished easily. On the other side, however, there's an entranceway that leads into the control room. So I obviously wanted to create that doorway and kind of get some of the details that you see. There's kind of like these two red lights on either side that I wanted to capture. So I will say that I do believe the tower looks a little janky right now. Obviously, one of the big things that are going to help with that is the texturing. But another thing that I do think needs to be improved is, the exact curvature. So I'm planning on adding 2 more of those Technic structures, one on either side, and then hopefully I'll add another layer of paneling, and it will end up kind of rounding off at a 90-degree angle where it's able to kind of meld better with the rest of the Capitol. But that's my plan for the next episode. I want to try to get most of the tower completely done, at least this part that I've been working on right here. I've already gotten past the trickiest part, which is going to be that control room with the rounded window and all the difficult techniques for the interior. But that's going to be it for this episode of Building RYLOTH. There should be a playlist appearing with all the episodes in the series, so if you need to get caught up on the series, you can go ahead and give that a watch. But that's going to be it for this episode. Have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.